You ever been told you're not good enough, even when you know you are? That's what it felt like every single day for 17-year-old Darius Miles, a quiet but brilliant black student at Brookridge High, where the halls were glossy, the banners screamed Ivy League pride, and the teachers barely bothered to learn how to pronounce his name right, especially Mrs. Caldwell, a sharp-tongued, tightly wound AP literature teacher who seemed to have a personal vendetta against him the moment he stepped into her classroom. Now Darius wasn't perfect. He didn't have rich parents, didn't roll up in a shiny car or live in the nice part of town, but he had a gift for words. He could break down metaphors like puzzles and write essays that made even the guidance counselor tear up. But none of that seemed to matter to Mrs. Caldwell, who smiled sweetly at the white students when they made mediocre points, and narrowed her eyes at Darius anytime he spoke. It started subtle, lower participation grades, comments like, "I expected more from you," or marking him tardy when he was clearly in his seat. But it got worse when the semester project rolled around, the one that determined 40% of the grade. Darius had poured his soul into that essay, analyzing Toni Morrison's Beloved through a lens of generational trauma and linguistic reclamation. It was deep, personal, powerful. But when she handed it back, there it was in red ink. "See, your analysis lacks depth. Sloppy work." He couldn't believe it. The same essay he'd shown to Mr. Lee, the English department chair, who had praised it as college-level brilliance, had been trashed by Caldwell like it was nothing. He tried to protest, respectfully, and she shut him down in front of the class. "If you spent less time with your attitude and more time writing, maybe your grade would reflect that." The room went silent, the stairs burned, and Darius sat down, his face flushed with a cocktail of shame and rage. That night, he took the same paper, changed only the name, typed in Emily Bradford, one of the top students in class, and asked her to submit it to Caldwell anonymously for feedback. A week later, Emily returned the paper to him, eyes wide. She gave it an A+ and wrote, "Outstanding insight." And just like that, Darius had proof, but no power. He wanted to fight back, to expose her, but when he showed the evidence to the school counselor, they told him it was complicated, and that grading is subjective. And when he brought it to the assistant principal, he was told to focus on his future, and not make trouble. It was clear. No one wanted to rock the boat for a poor black kid, but Darius wasn't backing down, not this time. He started documenting everything, recording conversations, taking photos of assignments, gathering emails, and even logging when Caldwell would praise others for ideas he had raised earlier in class. It was a slow process, lonely too, but Darius knew he was building a case. Then one day he stayed after school pretending to need help with a paper, while his phone recorded in his pocket, and as they talked he brought up the grade disparity again, and she said, laughing, "Darius, not everyone's college material. Some people just need to know their place." And when he played that audio for his mom, her hands shook as she listened, eyes brimming with fury. "We're not letting this slide," she said. The next morning she marched into the school and demanded a meeting with the principal, but Caldwell had already beat them to it, accusing Darius of cheating on his last test and threatening to fail him for the semester. It was a trap, and Darius was cornered. "This is retaliation," he argued, but his voice felt small in the massive office where the principal looked more interested in avoiding conflict than in finding justice. "Let's be reasonable," he said. "Let's just let this go." But Darius refused, so they placed him under academic review, blocking his scholarship applications until the investigation was over. It was the first time he saw his dream of college slipping, all because of a lie, all because of a woman who didn't want to see him succeed. But then something happened. Something Caldwell didn't expect. A teacher quietly slipped him a note in the hallway, "Meet me after school. Room 204. Come alone." That teacher was Mr. O'Connor, a quiet history teacher known for minding his business and sipping tea in the back of staff meetings. And when Darius showed up, Mr. O'Connor didn't say anything at first, just closed the blinds and locked the door. Then he pulled out a flash drive, slid it across the desk and whispered, "You didn't hear this from me?" Darius looked at it, confused. "What is it?" "Proof," he said. "Just be careful who you trust." And with that he walked out, heart pounding. Darius ran home and opened the files. What he saw made his mouth go dry. Emails, dozens of them, between Caldwell and a district official discussing students' performances. But the tone, the language, it was shocking. Too many of them in AP. One read, "We need to thin the herd. Start with Miles, he's got too much mouth and not enough pedigree." Another said, "If he tries to file a complaint, we'll bury him in policy." And the worst one, "He's smart but not the right kind of smart. Let him fail." Darius couldn't breathe, the bile rose in his throat. and suddenly every moment of humiliation made brutal sense. She didn't just dislike him, she targeted him, and now he had undeniable proof. He called his mom, sent her screenshots, and within the hour she had called a lawyer, a real civil rights attorney named Nadine Sykes, who used to work for the NAACP, and when she read the emails she looked up at them and said, "They messed with the wrong kid." Within a week, formal action was taken. Legal letters filed, media whispers swirling, and Caldwell called out sick. But just when Darius thought the storm was turning in his favor, he got a message. Anonymous, no number, you're being watched. Don't trust O'Connor. Darius froze, his finger hovering over the phone, his heart thudding in his chest, and just as he looked up, there was a knock at the front door, loud, urgent, authoritative, and when he opened it, he wasn't met by police or Caldwell or even his principal, but a sharply dressed woman in sunglasses and a black blazer who flashed a badge and said, "Mr. Miles, we need to talk. It's about your teacher, and it's bigger than you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths." Darius stood frozen at the door, eyes locked on the woman in black. Her presence radiated authority, like someone used to walking into chaos and silencing it with a glance. "I'm Agent Simone Harrow," she said firmly, flashing her badge again. "Federal Education Oversight Division." Darius blinked. He didn't even know such a department existed. "May I come in?" He stepped aside silently as his mother emerged from the kitchen, eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What's this about?" she asked, her voice low but laced with fire. Agent Harrow stepped inside, scanning the modest home with quiet calculation. "It's about Brookridge High. And more specifically, Mrs. Caldwell." Darius exchanged a glance with his mother. "We already have a civil rights lawyer," she said defensively. "We're taking legal action." Harrow nodded. "And you should. But this goes beyond civil courts. There's a wider pattern here, one we've been monitoring for over a year." She sat down at the table and pulled out a tablet, sliding it across to them. "Caldwell isn't the only one." Darius stared at the screen. There were names. Files. Dozens of students, mostly black and brown, labeled with terms like high risk, removed from AP, and worst of all, gatekeeping successful applicants. Harrow explained that a quiet network of educators in elite schools were informally sharing information, manipulating grades, and building invisible barriers to prevent certain students from accessing scholarships, college prep tracks, and recognition. "It's a systemic practice," she said, "but hard to prove without inside help." Darius leaned forward, pulse racing. "So what does that have to do with me?" Harrow's expression softened. "We believe your teacher made a critical mistake. She documented her actions in writing. And you have a unique opportunity." "To do what?" he asked slowly. "To help us bring them down," she replied. "We want you to go back into that school, act like everything's normal, and keep collecting evidence. But this time with our backing." His mom stood up, fists clenched. "Absolutely not. He's a child, not some undercover agent. You want a teenager to fix your problem while the adults play it safe." Harrow sighed. "Ma'am, I understand. But the truth is, we've tried. Whistleblowers get silenced. Teachers transfer. Files vanish. But your son is smart, brave, and now he's in the center of the storm. We need his help." Darius felt the pressure mounting like a vice around his chest. "I just wanted to go to college," he whispered. "Now I'm some kind of symbol?" Harrow looked at him seriously. "You're more than a symbol. You're the key." That night, Darius couldn't sleep. He replayed the voices, the sneers, the way Caldwell smirked when she thought no one was watching. But then he thought of the students after him, the younger kids who didn't even know their dreams were being strangled before they began. He made his decision. The next morning he walked back into Brookridge High with a small mic taped under his collar and a mission etched into his soul. Mrs. Caldwell had returned, pale but poised, and when he entered her classroom she barely looked at him. "Miles," she said flatly, "glad to see you've stopped playing the victim." Darius said nothing. He took his seat, waited, watched. Over the next few days he noticed patterns he'd missed before, how certain students were discouraged from taking honors classes, how essays from black students were returned with vague criticism while others were given glowing marks for less effort. He recorded it all, quietly, carefully. But someone else was watching too. It started with subtle things. A hallway conversation that suddenly went silent when he approached. Locker doors found ajar when he returned from class. Notes missing from his folder. And then, Mr. O'Connor stopped showing up. The teacher who had handed him the flash drive. Gone. Personal leave, the staff said. Family emergency. But Darius didn't buy it. He tried calling. Messaging. Nothing. Then one day while walking home, a black SUV crept beside him. Tinted windows. No plates. It didn't stop. Didn't speak. Just followed. And then sped off. Darius knew he was being warned. He told Agent Harrow. "We're aware," she said. "But stay the course. We're close." Close to what? Darius wondered. The weeks blurred into tension, secrecy, and constant fear. But one day the pressure exploded. He was called into the principal's office. The room was crowded. Principal Rowland, Mrs. Caldwell, and a school board lawyer he didn't recognize. "Mr. Miles," the lawyer began, "we have concerns regarding recent activities involving unauthorized recordings and privacy violations. These are serious infractions." Caldwell's smile was venomous. "I told you he was disruptive." Darius's hands clenched. "You mean the recordings that prove discrimination?" "There is no proof," the lawyer snapped. "Only manipulated audio, possibly fabricated by a student with a grudge." "Then why is Mr. O'Connor gone?" Darius shot back. That hit a nerve. Caldwell's smile faltered. Rowland stood up. "You're suspended pending further review." "You're punishing me for exposing the truth?" "We're protecting the school's reputation," Rowland said coldly. "And if you pursue this further, college recommendations may be reconsidered." Darius stared at them all, fury and fear battling inside him. "You think I'm afraid of losing college? I already lost respect, dignity, my chance. But you didn't take my voice." He turned and walked out. The next day the recordings, every single one, were anonymously uploaded online. By midnight they had gone viral. Students began speaking out. Alumni added their stories. Parents demanded accountability. Caldwell was suspended. An emergency board meeting was called. And Darius was pulled from school entirely. For safety reasons. That night Harrow called. "You started something bigger than us," she said. "But there's more you need to see." "What do you mean?" Darius asked. Harrow hesitated. "The network Caldwell was part of, it connects across districts, across states. This wasn't just Brookridge. And we believe the root of it starts with someone who's been funding the whole operation under an education initiative called Pinnacle Pathways." "Who runs that?" Darius asked slowly. There was silence. Then Harrow whispered, "Your principal's brother. And the person who signed off on the college funding grants that disappeared from your file." Darius's mouth went dry. "So what now?" "Now," she said, "we bring them all down. But you'll have to testify. In front of the entire board. And they're going to try to destroy you." Darius exhaled. "I'm ready." But as he turned off the call, he saw something on his doorstep. A yellow envelope. No name. Just a note that read, "One more move and your mother loses her job. You were warned. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths." The moment Darius held that envelope in his hand, a chill ran through him, not because of the paper but because of what it represented: power, intimidation, and fear disguised as politeness. The words, "One more move and your mother loses her job," weren't just a threat. They were a declaration of war, and the battlefield was now larger than a classroom. He stood frozen on the porch, the edges of the envelope fluttering in the breeze, his mind racing with one question: how far were these people willing to go? He rushed inside, locking the door behind him, heart pounding in his ears as he showed the note to his mother. She looked at it silently, her lips pressed tightly together, then calmly folded the paper and walked into her bedroom. Darius followed. "Mom, we need to tell Agent Harrow. They're threatening you now." But his mother turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "You think this is the first time someone tried to scare me out of protecting you? I've dealt with crooked landlords, racist employers, and systems built to keep us down. This is different, but I'm not backing down. Neither should you." Her words gave him strength, but deep inside, fear still clawed at his gut. That night, Agent Harrow arrived quietly, entering through the back door. "They're escalating," she said, examining the envelope with gloved hands. "This kind of threat proves we're hitting nerves. And it means they're watching, closely. We need to change strategy. Darius leaned forward. I want to testify. I want the school board, the media, everybody to hear the truth. Harrow shook her head. We're not going public just yet. Not until we find out exactly who's pulling the strings behind Pinnacle Pathways. The program's money is funding school boards, test prep courses, scholarship gatekeeping, and that includes the very people who reviewed your academic record and lost your recommendation letters. Darius clenched his fists. So it's not just Caldwell. It's a whole system. Exactly, Harrow said. We suspect a man named Leonard Rowland, Principal Rowland's brother, has been laundering funds through Pinnacle to create success profiles for elite students. That includes doctoring data, burying black student potential, and promoting white students from affluent families as deserving candidates. Darius couldn't believe what he was hearing, but it explained everything. Why his GPA was misreported on college apps, why scholarship portals mysteriously glitched, and why Caldwell was so emboldened. She wasn't working alone. She was protected. So how do we get to Leonard? Darius asked. Harrow slid a folder across the table. We have a whistleblower, an internal auditor from Pinnacle. He agreed to meet, but only with you present. He says he has documents that tie everything together. Why me? Because your case is the one that cracked this open. You're the reason he came forward. The meeting was set for Friday night at a quiet, private library across town. Darius felt his nerves rise the entire day, even more so when he received another message on his phone from a blocked number. We warned you. This is your last chance. He ignored it. He had come too far. When he arrived at the library with Harrow and her team, everything was quiet. Too quiet. They entered a private reading room where a man in a gray hoodie and glasses sat waiting, his eyes darting toward the door every few seconds. You're the kid, he said to Darius. You really stirred the hornet's nest. You got the proof? Harrow asked. The man nodded, pulling out a laptop and inserting a flash drive. He clicked a few folders. Emails. Bank records. Even minutes from private board meetings where they discussed GPA manipulation and race-based student vetting. This is going to bring everything down. Darius stared at the screen, stunned. There it was, dozens of files labeled with names of students, categorized by zip code, ethnicity, and success probability scores. The titles made him sick. They called us data points, he whispered. They played God with our futures. But just as Harrow leaned in closer, there was a loud crash, glass shattering in the hallway, followed by the shrill wail of the fire alarm. Move! One of Harrow's agents shouted, pulling Darius back. Smoke began to fill the air. The whistleblower grabbed the flash drive, shoved it into Darius's hand. Go. Take it. They can't find me here. Come with us. Darius shouted. No time, the man yelled, already bolting out the emergency exit. Harrow's team ushered Darius and his mother out into the parking lot. Sirens echoed in the distance, and the library was now engulfed in smoke. The flash drive felt like a burning coal in his hand. Back at Harrow's safe house, the agents scanned the contents. What they found made everyone go silent. Recordings of closed-door meetings, references to fund misappropriation, and even direct communications between Leonard Rowland and Caldwell. This is it, Harrow said. We leaked this and the whole system topples. But the celebration was short-lived. Because the next morning, the news reported a tragic accident involving an anonymous man found dead in his apartment, labeled a suicide. Darius stared at the screen in horror. It was the whistleblower. They got to him, Harrow whispered. They're cleaning house. That afternoon, Darius's mom received a phone call. Her job at the hospital? Terminated. Budget cuts, they said. Restructuring. But they knew what it was. Retaliation. Darius sat in his room, the weight of everything threatening to break him. His mother jobless. His own name now blacklisted in elite college circles. His whistleblower ally dead. The system was fighting back harder and dirtier than he expected. But then his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown contact. They're planning something bigger. The board meeting next week is a setup. Do not go alone. Darius stared at the message, his mind reeling. What do you mean a setup? He texted back. No reply. Just a photo. Grainy. Surveillance style. It showed Darius in the school parking lot, with a red circle drawn around someone in the background, Leonard Rowland, smirking beside a familiar face. Mrs. Caldwell. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The image burned itself into Darius's mind. A grainy photo, a red circle drawn like a bullseye, and the smirking face of Leonard Rowland standing next to none other than Mrs. Caldwell, the very woman who had publicly denied any affiliation beyond her role as a teacher. The sight of them together outside the school, just days before a critical board meeting, sent a jolt of fear through Darius's body that he could not shake. So they're working together, he murmured aloud, staring at the screen. They never stopped. Agent Harrow's face was tense as she leaned over his shoulder. And this means everything we've uncovered so far? It's just the surface. Leonard's not just funding this, he's orchestrating it. The next few days blurred into a flurry of covert planning, digital security, phone monitoring, and media coordination. Harrow's agency had the documents, the bank records, and the altered school reports. But releasing them before the board meeting risked alerting the very people who could bury the truth forever. The real key was bringing everything into the light, in front of the school board, the press, and the public. We'll file the documents with federal oversight, Harrow said, but you need to speak, Darius. We need your voice in that room in front of the people who tried to erase you. Darius's hands trembled slightly as he nodded. Then let's make sure they can't ignore me anymore. Meanwhile, Principal Rowland announced that the upcoming school board meeting would now be closed to the public due to security concerns. Students, teachers, and even parents were outraged. Protests began to form outside the school gates, hundreds of people chanting, holding signs that read "Justice for Darius," "Expose the board," and "End Pinnacle Pathways." The story had gone viral, and journalists from major outlets camped outside the school, hungry for any development. Despite the chaos, Darius remained focused. The night before the board meeting, he sat down with his mother and practiced his statement again and again, each word weighed with emotion, facts, and the steady fire of truth. No matter what they try, his mother whispered, brushing his hair gently, you've already won, baby. They tried to break you and you're still standing. The next morning, dressed in a simple navy suit borrowed from a neighbor, Darius walked up to the school gates, flanked by Agent Harrow and 2 federal investigators. The media swarmed him. Darius, what are you hoping to say? Is it true Mrs. Caldwell is involved in a larger scheme? Are you afraid for your safety? Darius said nothing. Not yet. Inside the school, the boardroom was tense, filled with icy glares and forced smiles. Principal Rowland sat at the center of the long oak table, flanked by board members, many of whom had also received anonymous tips about Pinnacle's corruption. Mrs. Caldwell sat near the end, looking almost smug, her hands folded, her lips curved in the faintest of smirks. Leonard Rowland was not present, but his name lingered like a ghost. We'll begin with student testimony, the chairman announced. Mr. Darius Miles, the floor is yours. Darius stood, heart pounding so loudly it nearly drowned out the silence. He walked to the podium, opened his folder, and breathed deeply. My name is Darius Miles. I'm a senior. Or at least I was until I got suspended for speaking the truth. But I'm here now because this isn't just about me. It's about every Black and brown student who's been told they aren't good enough, smart enough, or deserving enough to succeed, because of where we come from, because of what we look like, or because we don't fit someone's vision of a model student. The boardroom shifted uncomfortably. Caldwell rolled her eyes. Darius continued. I was failed on purpose. My grades were tampered with. My recommendations were lost. And my dreams were nearly stolen, not because I wasn't capable but because I was targeted. And I have proof. He reached into his folder and pulled out copies of the digital records, handed them to the clerk, and clicked on the tablet Harrow had given him. The projector blinked on. These emails, these documents, they show coordinated efforts to prevent students like me from receiving scholarships, college admissions, and recognition. And this isn't just my teacher's doing. This was systemic. Murmurs spread across the room as the emails appeared on screen. One clearly showed Mrs. Caldwell writing to Leonard Rowland, removed Darius from AP roster. Too vocal. Recommend alternative placement. Another read, his mother's a problem. Suggest we document behavioral issues to discredit complaints. Caldwell's face went pale. Principal Rowland leaned forward, his voice sharp. That's enough. These are unverified documents. Anyone could have. No, Agent Harrow said, rising from her seat. They're real. And verified by federal authorities. She held up her badge. The room froze. The Office of Federal Education Oversight has launched an official investigation. And today's testimony is being recorded. Any attempt to obstruct or intimidate this student will be considered a federal offense. The board members began whispering rapidly. Some looked terrified. One stood up and walked out. Darius finished his speech. All I wanted was a fair shot. But if I had to go through all of this to make sure no other student has to, then it was worth it. The room erupted in murmurs. One reporter outside who had gained access streamed it live. Within minutes, social media was flooded with clips of Darius's speech. Hashtags like #JusticeForDarius and #ExposePinnacle began trending. But as the meeting adjourned and the media swarmed again, Agent Harrow pulled Darius aside. You did good. But we have a problem. What now? He asked. Leonard Rowland is missing. He's disappeared. His accounts are frozen and it looks like he's gone underground. Why would he run? Darius asked. Harrow handed him a sealed folder marked classified. Inside were images of financial transfers, millions of dollars wired to offshore accounts, and then a list. Dozens of schools. Dozens of teachers. Each one flagged for involvement in a nationwide network designed to systematically suppress minority students' achievements. Leonard wasn't just doing this for power, Harrow said quietly. He was building something much bigger. This wasn't the end. It's just the beginning. Darius's face turned pale. So what now? Harrow gave him a hard look. Now, you become the face of the resistance. But you have to be careful. Because the people who were protecting Leonard, they're still out there. And then that night, Darius's house was broken into. No items stolen. No valuables touched. But on the wall of his bedroom, someone had spray-painted a message in red. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The red spray-painted warning on Darius's bedroom wall stayed burned into his mind long after it was scrubbed clean. Drop this or you're next. Those words weren't just a threat. They were a message to every underdog who dared challenge a system built to silence them. The fear that had briefly taken root in Darius's heart now bloomed into resolve. He looked at his mother the next morning as sunlight streamed through the window. She was already dressed for another job interview, having lost her position at the hospital in the fallout. Despite everything, she kissed his forehead and said, "You don't stop now. You fight louder." Meanwhile, the FBI's deeper probe into Pinnacle pathways revealed a horrifying web of corruption. Thousands of student records altered, scholarship algorithms programmed to exclude Black and brown students, school staff bribed to redirect students, and anonymous donations from shadowy organizations with political motives. But the ringleader, Leonard Rowland, remained missing. It was as if he had vanished off the face of the earth. Weeks passed, and Darius became the symbol of resistance, his story covered in national media. He was interviewed on major networks. Civil rights organizations reached out. Colleges that once lost his application now publicly apologized and offered him full scholarships. Still, Darius stayed grounded. "This isn't just about me," he told one interviewer. "This is about every kid who's ever been told you're not enough." One day, while helping sort documents in Agent Harrow's office, Darius stumbled on something, an old application file flagged, suppressed. It had been submitted by a student named Jalen Knox, a Black student who had mysteriously dropped out 3 years ago after being academically disqualified. Darius remembered him. Jalen was brilliant, quiet, gifted in coding. But one day he just disappeared. What happened to him? Darius asked. Harrow took a breath. He was one of the first. His case was buried. We found out he tried to expose Pinnacle before anyone else. A week later his mother was fired. He was accused of hacking school records. His life spiraled. Darius couldn't shake the feeling. Where is he now? Harrow hesitated. Off the grid. Probably in hiding. Or worse. That night, Darius posted a message on his private account. To Jalen Knox, if you're out there, we're still fighting. And we're not afraid anymore. The message went viral. And 3 days later, a private message came in. No name. Just a link. Darius clicked. A live video feed opened. A young man with a scar under his left eye in a dark room stared at the camera. Darius, the voice said, I'm Jalen. Harrow leaned in behind him, shocked. I saw your message. I've been in hiding, but I have everything. The entire blueprint of Pinnacle's back-end system. Names, codes, funds, blacklists, automation triggers. Everything. I downloaded it before they wiped my record. I just didn't know how to release it without getting someone else hurt. We can protect you, Harrow said. Jalen nodded. Then let's blow the whole damn thing open. What followed was nothing short of historic. With Jalen's data and the FBI's backing, the operation expanded to a federal investigation that rocked the education system. Dozens of educators and administrators were arrested. Leonard Rowland was found weeks later, hiding in a private estate overseas and extradited. He was charged with fraud, conspiracy, and violation of civil rights. Mrs. Caldwell was also indicted for her role in targeted academic suppression. The entire Pinnacle Pathways program was dismantled. In a powerful moment broadcast across the country, Darius stood on stage at the National Education Justice Summit, receiving a special award for courage and truth. This is for the kids who were silenced, he said. We are no longer invisible. And in the front row, Jalen Knox sat beside Darius's mother, both of them clapping with pride and tears in their eyes. Months later, Darius enrolled in a top university, majoring in political science and education reform. But he never forgot where it started. He returned often to his old school, now under new leadership, mentoring students who once felt like him, unseen. In a world where systems are designed to silence and suppress, speaking up may feel dangerous, but it is the most powerful act of resistance. Darius's story reminds us that change begins with one voice refusing to be silenced. For every attempt to erase potential, there is a greater force in truth, perseverance, and community. No matter how powerful the opposition, justice rises when people stand together. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.